Hello and welcome to Arirang TV's special coverage of COVID-19. I'm Min Hoon-ki. We're starting the program early today to join live the regular afternoon briefing on COVID-19, which is poised to begin in a few minutes. Meanwhile, findings as of early this Thursday show the total number of infections linked to Seoul's Itaewon outbreak stands at 131. Now, health authorities have doubled their efforts to track down the more than 10,900 individuals who are believed to have been in the area, in the Itaewon area, that is, between the 24th of April and the 6th of May. Some 2,000 people have yet to be reached, and upon learning that 1,000 of these individuals are foreigners, Seoul officials have translated their Korean text messages to members of the public into 12 different languages, urging all those who were in the area, that is, during that particular period, to call 1339 for the KCDC call center or to visit a nearby community health center to get tested. Officials have also reached out to embassies here in the capital city, urging them to encourage their nationals to head to testing centers if they suspect they have been exposed to the virus. Again, officials are stressing that the tests can be taken anonymously and that the test takers need not reveal their intentions for taking these free of charge tests, all as part of efforts to prevent unnecessary privacy violations. There are also calls for those working at educational, sports and religious facilities to get tested. Here now is a briefing.
Let us now begin our regular briefing for today, and as of today midnight, let me brief you on the latest outbreak. And we had 29 new cases as of yesterday, and the total confirmed case stands at 10,991. This includes 1,145 imported cases from overseas, and 90% of them are South Korean nationals. And we have 67 newly recovered, and a total of 9,762 have been discharged, and a total of 969 people are in quarantine undergoing treatment. And unfortunately, we had one additional fatality as of yesterday, and I extend my deepest condolences to the deceased and the members of the bereaved families. And today we had 29 new cases, and community infection accounted for 26 of them. In Incheon, we had 12, the highest number. It was followed by 6 in Gyeonggi-do Province, 3 in Seoul City. And we had 3 imported cases, one from America, one from Bangladesh, and also another from Pakistan. And especially for the community cluster that we are witnessing here, out of the 26 relating to the Itaewon Club, we have 20 people. And we have 4 related to the contacts, and also in Gyeonggi-do Province we had 1 additional cluster infection. And as for the Hongdae area, we are seeing 1 case as well, and we are doing the epidemiological investigation for these cases. And as for these 20 cases that have been related to clubs, 5 of them are visitors to the club, 15 were contacts of the confirmed cases. And as of noon, we have 2 additional new cases, making the total of club-related cases accounting for 133. And we are currently doing our quarantine authorities. And most of them also have, all of them have different age groups, and by sources of infection, we have 80 people who are visitors and 50 people who are the contacts. And by age group, we have 19 to 20 in their 20s, accounting for 83 people with the highest ratio. And the quarantine authorities, we believe that for those of you who have visited the nightlife venues in the Itaewon area until May 6th, from April 27th, we would like to advise you to stay home and refrain from going to other places, and contact your local public health center or dial 1339 and visit a screening clinic and get tested regardless of symptoms as soon as possible. In particular, especially if you are engaged in religious and medical services and indoor sports facilities, we believe that you are more prone to infections, infectious spread of the infection, and that you could also this could infer greater damages. So please report to us and get screening testings.
저희 방역대책본부에서는
The
불필요한
quarantine
사생활
authority, we
침해를
are
방지하기
also
위하여
highlighting
익명
that
검사를
we are
전국으로
conducting
확대해서
our
시행하고
anonymous testings
반복해서
nationwide,
대량 노출이 되는
and
장소에
we
대해서는
also will reveal the travel routes of the confirmed cases according to revised guidelines, so that they will be able to protect their own privacy.
반복 대량 노출 장소에 대해서 상호명 그리고
And we also have we will make sure that we will protect the privacy as well as personal information of these people. And up until now, we have made sure that we protect one's personal information. However, we are seeing a disclosure of a gender and age of the confirmed cases. So therefore, we are going to revise our guidelines of disclosure of information as soon as possible. So we continue to ask you to participate in our quarantine guidelines. So please refrain from concealing and hiding any of the facts when we conduct the epidemiological investigations, as doing so could subject you to penalties and fine under the Infectious Disease Act. Currently, we are seeing a witness in the cluster infections. Therefore, we once again highlight the importance of identifying patients at an early stage. And if you are suspicious of those who have visited the Itaewon area or Hongdae area, you are more prone to the virus. And if you have had close contact within enclosed and crowded spaces, and if you develop symptoms, please report to us and please get to the screening clinics to get tested as soon as possible. We also ask the rest of the public to engage in the 5 infection prevention rules, including stay at home when you are sick and keep a physical distance and wash your hands and cough or sneeze into your sleeve and ventilate your space. This is very important, so please comply with these measures going forward. And another message to all of the public is as follows. We are witnessing a club infection in a certain area, which is spreading to the measures that are taken by the central government as well as local governments. And it has been a week since we have first identified such cases, and we are protecting their private information. So we are conducting our quarantine guidelines and efforts based on this. And if you have not been tested, please get tested if you have been in this area, if you haven't done so, because your infection could lead to secondary and tertiary infection to your families and your neighbors, as well as to the society as a whole. So rather than we also see witnessing of silent cluster infections within our community. So if you do not feel well, please be suspicious and get tested as well. And the medical doctors will also advise you to have the testings more frequently to the people. And please reveal all of the truth information when you are under the epidemiological investigation. And if you are breaching such rights, you will be subject to the Infectious Disease Act, and also you will be violating such act, and you will be facing penalties and fines. We are at a very critical juncture right now, and up until now, we have had a very tight-knit quarantine network, and all of our success now depends on our response going forward. So this is a very important turning point. Of course, the current outbreak is compared to the exponential surge in the confirmed cases in late February and early March. We are seeing a decrease in the lower number, because all thanks to the participation of the public, as well the dedication and sacrifice put forth by the medical circles. And as we can see in the cluster infections and the related cases, we are seeing a decrease in the number of secondary infections, and we are very cautiously dealing with the outbreak. However, when it comes to responding to the COVID-19, complacency is a word that we need to never forget, and we should never forget how fearful this complacency could lead to. And in other countries, many countries are also seeing complications. And we are also seeing many easing of the lockdowns. And in China and Germany, we are seeing also cluster infections. So we need to keep these in mind. And the coronavirus also comes to us when we are more complacent. And it can happen at anywhere, any place, to anyone. So this is something that you shall be aware as of now. As we have mentioned numerous times, the world has changed due to the COVID-19 outbreak. Therefore, our daily life shall also be changed accordingly. And this is, in fact, social distancing. And distancing in daily life was also carried out throughout the past weeks. And we have, under these new guidelines, we have resumed religious services and other physical meetings and gatherings. However, if you feel symptoms, please get tested as soon as possible. It is indeed a very complex disease. However, if we, each and every one of us, exert our responsibility, we believe we can cooperate in overcoming this very crucial and important juncture. Thank you very much.
Right, we began a little earlier today as the briefing started at 1:40 p.m. in Korea time. So let's begin with a summary perhaps of the key announcements at that briefing.
All right, well, the Vice Director of the KCDC, Kwon Jun-ok, has been stressing a lot of complacency at this briefing, saying complacency could pose significant consequences, calling on each and every individual's responsibility in fighting against this pandemic, especially because due to the case linked to the cluster infection in Itaewon, of which we now have 133 cases across the nation linked to that specific case. And it looks like, according to the KCDC, more than 20,700 people have been tested for the virus yesterday. So that really shows how the government is now focusing on massive testing. And in the meantime, we also have 3 imported cases from Bangladesh, America, and Pakistan. And it looks like 20 people today were linked to the Itaewon case, and 5 were club visitors, and 15 were people that had contact with the clubbers. What's also notable is that there were 13 people aged below 18 that were infected with the virus in this case, and 83 people between 19 and 29, which really means that the younger generation is being now affected by this virus from this clubbing case. So let's take a closer look at the government's figures as of 12 a.m. We have a total of 10,991 cases now, with these 29 cases added, and 26 out of these 29 cases were community spreads, and we have 1 more death added, bringing the death toll to 260, and 969 people are in quarantine. And for the first time since February 26th, the number of people in quarantine dropped to below 1,000. That was mentioned at an earlier briefing, and which said this number was attributed largely due to the so-called living treatment centers, which treats people with lighter symptoms. And now let's move over to our map. We can see that most of the new cases were concentrated in the metropolitan area, and now especially in Incheon probably because of that case related to a teacher that was linked to the Itaewon clubbing case. And 20 out of the 29 cases are related to the Itaewon cluster infections again, which has been raising concerns of surges in secondary and tertiary infections, and especially at education facilities. In fact, earlier in the morning, there was an emergency meeting held between the Ministry of Education and the Seoul Metropolitan Government, as well as the Seoul Metropolitan Office of Education, following a cram school teacher's transmission of the virus virus to a number of students. So far, more than 10 young students have contracted the virus from their teachers who recently visited clubs or bars where the 66th patient from Yongin went to in early May. Minister Yoo recommended cram schools, which are not suspended like regular schools, to hold remote classes. Given these latest developments, the return of students at schools is still uncertain, while plans are to start on May 20th for seniors at high schools.
Right. Meanwhile, President Moon Jae-in and his Chinese counterpart held talks yesterday on COVID-19.
Right. It looks like the two leaders were pretty satisfied with their bilateral cooperation in the fight against the pandemic. Presidents Moon and Xi assessed their partnership as having been effective, such as their fast-track entry system for business travelers to minimize economic effects while maintaining strict prevention and control of coronavirus spreads. The two also agreed to continue on joint cooperation on drug and vaccine research and development, and they saw eye to eye on meeting face-to-face in Korea as soon as the COVID-19 situation stabilizes.
Meanwhile, also around the world, a health expert had some rather grave words to say about the virus.
Right. An official at the World Health Organization said the novel coronavirus may never go away entirely and that the world will have to live with it. Let's take a listen.
There's a long way to go before there's going to be any bells unrung in this response. So I think we need to be clear about that. Countries, as you've seen, are trying to find a path out and a path towards a new normal, as many people have put it, and we're going to be on that pathway for a long time.
The head of the WHO Health Emergencies Program did not rule out that COVID-19 could become another endemic virus, comparing it to HIV. Noting what even small recurrences in some countries can cause, he called on continuous vigilance and the need for a serious public health response. And at that briefing, also WHO Chief Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus warned that despite many countries trying to ease lockdowns and restrictions, the organization recommends that highest alert levels should be maintained.
So I also hear that every single country in the African continent has reported a COVID-19 case now.
Right, that because Lesotho has become the last of 54 African countries that has reported a COVID-19 case. The country's health ministry confirmed its first coronavirus patient, a Lesotho national studying in Saudi Arabia. As of Wednesday local time, the ministry has conducted more than 80 COVID-19 tests on travelers from neighboring South Africa and Saudi Arabia. Some 300 other tests were said to be pending. Lesotho had been in a lockdown since late March, with over 10,000 cases recorded in neighboring South Africa, the largest tally in Africa. The continent has almost 70,000 total cases and more than 2,400 deaths. Meanwhile, in other places with larger outbreaks, the U.S. has 1.4 million cases now, with more than 85,000 deaths and far over 200,000 deaths in Spain, Russia, the U.K. and Italy. And Brazil is now seeing a faster increase in the spread at over 189,000. That's more than France and Germany. In the meantime, around 4.3 million people have been affected by the COVID-19 virus across the world.
All right, so thank you very much for that update.
My
We'll see you
pleasure.
again tomorrow. Adam, concerns continue over COVID-19 in the Itaewon outbreak.
That's right. Fears over a mass cluster infection have become a reality now, pretty much. It's not really just fears at the moment. Enough people have already, newly infected people have already been established in order to spread the virus even further away from just the source, this Itaewon clubber. Now, it's just a matter of tracking down those who were in contact with the Itaewon clubber and also who weren't, in fact, in contact with them because, as you said, secondary and tertiary infections have occurred. And new patients are infecting those around them, such as friends and families in other areas as well. Now, patients were reported throughout the country, ranging from the wider capital area, including Gyeonggi-do province and Incheon, even down to Busan and the island of Jeju. And many of these people don't even know they are infected, and so they are going about their daily lives and spreading the virus unwillingly. But many infections are taking place in confined spaces as well, such as these coin singing rooms, which are very small booths, as well as students taking private tutoring as well. There have been some private tutors who have been infected and infecting students alike. Authorities are desperate to try and find a connection between all of these infection routes in order to stop further spread, but of course that is no easy task, and this is being done to find those who were in contact with the source, the Itaewon clubber, as well as potential third-party patients as well.
Right. Seoul's foreign minister has been quite busy on the diplomatic front. She's been meeting with her counterparts, she's been talking with her counterparts, that is, and holding interviews with foreign media. What's the latest?
Well, her latest interview was with the German broadcaster Deutsche Welle. Kang expressed concern over the recent spike in cases in Korea, adding that sanitary rules weren't adhered to at the Itaewon nightclubs in question. She said that led to a huge population that now needs to be traced and tested. She did note that while entertainment facilities have been temporarily shut down, the move doesn't mean a wholesale lockdown of businesses, adding that she doesn't think it will ever get to that point. The foreign minister stressed the country is prepared to fight the outbreak, but added that, quote, "we have to live with the risk." She also rejected privacy concerns relating to using mobile technology to trace contacts. She told DW that the issue of privacy has been taken out of context. She explained that Korea has a very robust legal system in place where it clearly identifies as to where these rights might be restricted. She added that, quote, "and when you balance the privacy of the patients against the public's need to be protected from the risk, I think the answer is very clear." So she's saying privacy is not more important than public safety. And she also said she's watching very carefully how the situation develops in North Korea as well. There are doubts over Pyongyang's claim that it has no cases, and the minister said Seoul is taking the North's official position with, quote, "a grain of salt."
I see. Meanwhile, more grim figures for the global economy are here.
That's right. The United Nations this time, it forecasts that the COVID-19 pandemic will shrink the world economy by 3.2% this year. That would be the sharpest contraction since the Great Depression in the 1930s. The UN's mid-year report also said the impact of the coronavirus crisis is expected to slash global economic output by nearly $8.5 trillion over the next 2 years. That would wipe out almost all gains of the last 4 years. Now, in January, before the COVID-19 became a pandemic, the UN had forecast a modest growth of 2.5% in 2020. For next year, the UN predicts a modest rebound, making up most of the lost output. But in the worst-case scenario, it said the global economy could contract by a further 0.5% in 2021 if a new wave of infections and lockdowns continue in the third quarter, which will end in September.
All right, Aram, thank you for that. We'll see you again tomorrow. Meanwhile, on a brighter note, professional sports are back in Korea in spite of the global pandemic. COVID-19 may have halted the sporting calendar worldwide, but given the relative control over the contagion in this part of the world, we are seeing much action in the arena. Baseball season is in full swing, much to the delight of fans here and abroad. And today, the LPGA of Korea Tour is on course. And for more on that, we have our Chun Sung-cho. Do we have a connection?
Right, behind me is the venue of the 42nd KLPGA Championship, the Lakewood Country Club in Yangju, Gyeonggi-do Province, just an hour drive north of Seoul. And I have to say the weather is perfect today for some golf. Not too much sunlight and quite overcast skies. The temperatures are hovering around 24 degrees Celsius. And the KLPGA season has been put on hold since the beginning of this year. And for the first time in months, leading professional golfers have returned to the greens to competitive action. We have 3 of the world's top 10 female players, Park Sung-yeon, Kim Se-young, Lee Jung-eun, and as well as Jang Ha-na and Kim Hyo-ju participating in today's event. What happens for the next couple of days here in Yangju will really set an example of how golf tournaments across the world can be played in the era of COVID-19 moving forward. So foreign media outlets around the world are following the game very closely. I'm talking about AFP, Associated Press, and Fuji TV. And if you're in countries like Indonesia, Japan, Australia, and New Zealand, then you'll be able to watch the game home live too. And highlights will be broadcast in countries like the US and Canada as well. Now, you might have noticed the venue here is quite quiet right now, not too much people. That's because no spectators are allowed inside the country club. Strict protocols have been put in place to ensure safety and to really fend off against the risk of spread of COVID-19. So every single staff member, player will have to get their body temperature checked with a thermal imaging camera. Everyone is required to wear a mask except for the players when they're playing game. And also players arriving at the range will have to walk through what's called a UV sterilizing sanitizer and maintain a safe distance with their competitors on the greens as well. Now, the official slogan of the event is Overcome COVID-19, Let's Go Korea. And I hope what we have accomplished here in South Korea, the restart of a major sport competition, can really set an example and also offer a glimmer of hope for people around the world who are watching the game from every corners of the world. Because South Korea has endured some of the worst early outbreaks of COVID-19. So if South Korea can do it, I believe any country can do it. This has been Jeon Sung-cho reporting live from Yangju.
South Korea's baseball league, the KBO, kicked off on May 5th, becoming the second major league to resume play after Taiwan's pro baseball. The opening games, which were played without spectators, were broadcast live in the US and Japan, where sports are still called off due to COVID-19. Baseball fans around the world were thrilled to finally have live games back on TV after the pandemic brought the sporting world to a halt.
Just the fact that Korean way of style of baseball is being embraced, where baseball actually came from, has a special meaning, and I think it's going to be have a huge impact both here in Korea and also back in the States as well. So I think it's a win-win situation for everybody. American fans are getting to know a different brand of baseball.
Some fans are drawn to the passion and emotion in a KBO game, such as over-the-top bat flips and dramatic strike-three calls.
Well, one of the main focus on and talk about is bat flips, which doesn't really happen all that often at Major League Baseball. Celebration of a home run where a batter tosses the bat really high. American fans seems to love it. We're getting a really good feedback and people are really enjoying it.
Others are excited to watch high-quality play, from game-changing home runs to stifling defense.
Yeah, so this is the first year that I've ever watched the KBO. I've known about it in the past, but it's never been on TV in America, so it was never really something that I could watch even if I wanted to. But so far, my first impressions are it's great. It's definitely not as good as Major League Baseball, but I wouldn't be watching if I didn't think it was worth my time, and it's definitely worth my time. I'm addicted.
South Korea's Professional Football League, or the K-League, also started its new season with 3.4 million people streaming the opener on Twitter. The foreign press covering the opening match highlighted strict safety measures that were put in place, as well as the playback of recorded cheer songs from fans that filled the empty stadium.
I think it'll stay I actually think it will grow during the pandemic, but when North American sports comes back, obviously there'll be an immediate refocus, but people will still watch it. And I think people will still track it because it has given that that showcase of, okay, this is quality baseball, it's fun, and so why wouldn't you keep coming back?
Well, Korea's Baseball League has the world's attention at the moment, with the games being broadcast live in the US, where sporting fixtures are on hold to halt the spread of COVID-19. For more on the baseball season here, I have Min Hoon-ki, a commentator for SPOTV and former MLB's correspondent. Welcome to the program, Mr. Min.
Thank you.
And I also have Yoo Jee-ho, a sports journalist at Yonhap News. Welcome to the program, Mr. Yoo.
Thanks for having me.
Mr. Min, sports broadcaster ESPN signed a deal to broadcast KBO games to American audiences. How much interest is there for Korea's pro baseball right now?
Well, actually, baseball is national pastime in America, but right now there is no Major League Baseball in the States. And then ESPN, broadcast one KBO game every day since the opening day. And also Sports Zone in Japan, they broadcast 2 KBO games every day on the internet. So baseball is getting big in 2 biggest baseball countries in the world. And also, I also got SNS messages from India and from Finland regarding of the KBO league. So there are lots of interest out there.
I see. Mr. Yoo, you were on ESPN's broadcast of a KBO game as a guest commentator last weekend. Tell us a bit about that experience.
Sure. Well, it's a little bit embarrassing, I think, to talk too much about myself being on air, but I will say this. It was indeed a very special experience to be able to talk about Korean baseball and the KBO League on ESPN, which bills itself as the worldwide leader in sports. I never imagined that 1, Korean baseball would be broadcasted on ESPN, and 2, I'd actually be on air to talk about it. So, it was a special experience to talk to the commentators and analysts that I sort of grew up watching on TV, and really talk about the Korean game and how it differs from MLB and what people in the U.S. are used to watching.
Mr. Min, as we saw in the video, American baseball fans appear to have been quite fascinated by the famous bat flips,
yes.
Which I understand are largely frowned upon in the MLB. Do tell us a bit about this discrepancy.
Well, actually, it's unwritten law in Major League Baseball.
Okay.
When the hitters hit a home runs, they don't do bat flips. But in Korean baseball, we have different culture, And American fans hardly see this before. But now they watch all kinds of different bat flips of KBO League batters, hitters. They like it, and they are excited with the batters' enthusiasm and emotions. I believe they're really enjoying it.
Mr. Yoo, would you say that it is perhaps this unique cheering culture that's making the games more entertaining for the American audiences then?
Right, so cheering culture and the bat flips. I think one aspect, one element that we're missing right now is the cheering culture, because the games are being played without fans in the stands. As far as the bat flips, I guess it's unique in the sense that we don't see a lot of that in the U.S. As Mr. Min said, it's kind of frowned upon in the U.S. But there's also a growing sector of fans in the U.S. among the younger generation that it is okay to show some emotions playing the game. Because I think we have to remember that these are grown-ups playing a children's game, chasing a white ball. And it's okay to show some emotions by maybe tossing the bat a little bit. And I think we're seeing that, the fans are seeing that in Korean League, and it is refreshing to them. And, there's nothing wrong with showing emotions, and I guess this is something that's unique to Korean baseball. And also, if anything, I got some reaction from the U.S. broadcasters that they didn't see as many bat flips as they had expected during the first week. And their guess is that maybe without the fans in the stands, these players didn't quite have the energy to feed up on. So maybe they didn't show a lot of maybe not as much as emotions as they usually would.
That's an interesting aspect, right? Now, for more on the response to Korea's professional baseball games in the U.S., I have live on the line Tyler Maun, a commentator for minor league baseball in the U.S. Hello, Tyler.
Hi, how are you? Thank you so much for having me.
Fine, thank you. Thanks for being here. First, for the sake of our viewers here in Korea, perhaps you could start with a short interview, with a short introduction, that is.
Yeah, certainly. So I cover minor league baseball, actually for Major League Baseball, MLB.com. That's my primary job. I also broadcast for the World Baseball Softball Confederation. So I do, you can see one of the signs from one of our World Cup tournaments, actually, that was in Gyeonggi last year. So I do broadcast for World Cup tournaments and the Premier 12 last year, which was one of our Olympic qualifying events. And so, yeah, kind of a baseball person through and through.
Tyler, would you say that interest in Korea's professional baseball in the U.S. has gotten stronger in recent times?
Yeah, I certainly would. I mean, obviously, this helps more than anything for the profile of both the KBO and the CPBL in Taiwan, and if we get the NPB games back soon as well. But it's interesting. We live in an era where it's so easy to find your sport wherever it is around the globe. And if you're somebody like me who works weird hours sometimes, and you're up 1 in the morning, and there happens to be a game streaming on somewhere where you can find a Korean game, even prior to this season. That's a fun thing to have in the world that we live in now. And certainly the popularity nowadays through the last couple of weeks with actual live games being telecast over here has been pretty impressive to watch.
What is the reaction among American audiences to the KBO games? I mean, how are they responding to the bat flips, that is?
I don't know of a single person who doesn't love the bat flips, so I know that it's always a controversial thing that people bring up, and I think it's kind of more of an old school baseball person who doesn't like the bat flips. I love them, and I wish that we would have more of them here. And I think there's a younger generation that's coming up that sort of feels the same way, or playing baseball and watching baseball and all that. But the thing that's been the most fun to watch over the last couple of weeks is the way American fans have embraced not only the game and the quality of the game that's played, but seeing fans on social media picking out, well, who's my team going to be? What sort of team in the KBO is like the team that I cheer for in Major League Baseball? And seeing, the various ways that everybody has decided who they're going to cheer for has been really cool. So the way it's been embraced has been really a fun and needed distraction around here.
Right, so like you mentioned, I'm sure the games themselves are great to watch, but they come at a very difficult time, like you said, during this global pandemic. What do you suppose is another major focus of attention for the viewers then?
Yeah, I mean, that kind of hits at the heart of it. Right now, we're so starved for anything that resembles normalcy. And I think what it does to see games being played in Taiwan and in Korea, and even, I follow NPB teams on social media that are showing their practices in Japan right now. And we don't have that. We don't even have teams practicing or working out or doing any of that at the moment. So I think what it does is it gives the American fans and Canadian fans and even fans, the Mexican League right now is suspended its operations for the pandemic as well. And I think it gives people hope in a time when they really need hope, because they see if games can happen elsewhere, even if it's without fans, even if it's not the normal operation that you would see in a KBO game, it still gives us hope that, well, maybe someday soon I'll be able to see my team back, even if it is in an empty stadium. That's something so much better than what we have right now. So it's a tremendous vehicle for hope for fans over here right now.
All right, Tyler, thank you for making the time and for sharing your thoughts with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Now, Mr. Yoo, I wonder how Korean players and staff members are reacting to the popularity of KBO worldwide. Have you spoken to any of them?
Well, I have spoken to some managers and also some U.S. players, former Major League players that are playing in the KBO. For the managers, I think in the beginning, maybe they were a little conscious of all these eyeballs from the U.S. They wanted to put the best face forward, if you will, try to win as many games as they could. For, I guess, the wider audience. With the U.S. players, the situation is almost ironic, because when they were playing the U.S., maybe they weren't getting as much ESPN exposure in the majors. But now that they're playing in Korea, thinking they weren't going to get any exposure in the U.S., now they have their family members, their friends back home, their former Major League teammates actually following their games and the highlights on the ESPN. So this is a new kind of exposure for them. As for the Korean players, again, they were a little bit maybe conscious of, being on air live in the U.S., possibly maybe Major League scouts even watching them. So this could potentially open up a new sort of path for some of the players to the majors down the road. But again, I think after a little bit of novelty wore off after the first few days, I think it went back to just business as usual, just going through the same routine, not trying to get conscious about ESPN coverage.
Mr. Min, Korea, I believe, has a good record on the international front regarding baseball. We won the Olympic gold in 2008 with the first runner-up and finishing runner-up, that is, into the 2009 World Baseball Classic. Do you think the KBO has what it takes to be competitive in the global market?
Yes, it's same baseball, but it's very different. Korea has a very unique style of baseball, and that can appeal fans all over once they experience it. It's not as strong as MLB overall, but we have small ball tactics, fan cultures, and we have good players. We have a lot of stuff to show for. And they haven't seen the largest sing-along, dance-along sports stage yet. And also, KBO plays exciting games. You know, they hardly gave up until the end of the game. We have only a week or so played. We have 5 walk-off wins already. And baseball is addictive sports. And we just play our game, and then the fans will follow, I believe.
Mr. Yoo, you spoke about the exposure that Korean baseball is getting. This is also the reality for golf and football. Do you suppose this is the golden moment for Korean sports to kind of broaden their fan base or their presence in the international arena?
Well, I do. You know, looking at the KBO and the K-League and the KLPGA Tour, you know, KBO was founded in 1982, and I can tell you there's never been this much interest internationally in KBO baseball. Same for K-League football, 1983. You know, there's never been this much interest, these many eyeballs on this league. And golf, you know, this is the only golf tour in the world of this caliber that are currently being played right now. So I heard there's about 70 credentialed media members covering the KLPGA Championship this week. K-League football games being broadcast live to 36 different countries. And the league has also sold rights to different digital platforms, which means that people just anywhere in the world can tune in and watch games on demand. With KBO, we talked about being on ESPN. Obviously, highlights are also available, and highlights being on the news programs as well. So a lot of exposure, good opportunity, I think, for Korean sports, baseball, football, and golf, and maybe some other sports that might be starting soon, to sort of get past the point of being a curiosity, maybe being a bit of a novelty. Now people are going to see that, for example, in baseball, there might be a little more to Korean baseball than bat flips and cheering. In football, hey, maybe these guys are actually good. And golf, I think we all know about the quality of women's golf in Korea, but I think people are getting a chance to see finally how strong the domestic tour is in Korea.
And which is why, Mr. Min, what needs to be done to ensure that the same level of interest in Korean sports remains once other major leagues kick off?
Well, actually, you know, we can't raise the level of the KBO all of a sudden. But the players, managers, coaches, they just have to play their games with all the best they can. And they all know it's a free showcase in big market in the States and in Japan. So they really try hard all the time. Just play hard and having fun. And then, you know, all the fans, regardless where they live, hard-working players, they appreciate it and they like it, they enjoy it. And also I heard that MLB may open the season in July, may or may not, but even ESPN is considering that whether they open the season in the States or not, they may show the KBO League game every day on ESPN3. They already talk about it. So yeah, we have pretty competitive league, so we'll just try hard and play hard and having fun every day.
What are your thoughts on this, Mr. Yoo? How can we maintain the same level of interest in Korean sports?
No, I agree with the fact that, you know, the athletes have to go out there and just do the same thing they've been doing all their careers, which is, you know, just do the best and play hard and, again, have fun. I talked about players showing emotions on the field. I think a lot of fans out there really appreciate that. Sometimes, you know, again, the grown-ups forget that they're playing a children's game. It's okay to have a little fun, and if they have some more eyeballs from different parts of the world, then all the better. So, yeah, just try not to get too caught up in the hype, I guess. Just try to be
level-headed.
Yeah, level-headed, business as usual, and the good things will happen.
Right. Mr. Min, we've also been getting quite a lot of foreign media coverage over Korea's efforts in containing the virus to allow for such sporting events. The challenge now is to make sure that the games all end properly. I understand there are 144 games to be played in the baseball season.
Right.
What should be done to ensure that we have a happy ending to the baseball season?
Yeah, it's a mammoth task, I believe. But KBO has Corona task force since like 2 months ago. And they made a really very detailed and specific manual, which MLB and even Spain Soccer League asked to share. And I think KBO respond to the COVID-19 as good as they can, as well as they can so far. But well, actually, KBO planned some audience at the stadium this week. But since the another spread last weekend of Corona, it has to be stopped. But The cooperation with the Korean Centers for Disease Control, KBO, and the 10 teams and players, they will do their best to finish this season safely. But we need all the help from the people, and also we need a lot of luck too, I believe.
Very briefly, Mr. Yoo, what are your thoughts to ensure that we have a safe end to the baseball season?
Yeah, just brief message. Don't be foolish. Follow the rules, follow the guidelines, keep your distance, and just do your job on the field.
Right. Thank you so much, Mr. Yoo and Mr. Min, for your thoughts today. Hopefully we'll see a safe ending to the baseball season.
Hope so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, and that brings us to the end of Thursday's edition of COVID-19. We'll be back tomorrow with a look at the impact of the virus on the environment and more. In the meantime, do share your thoughts and your inquiries with us on our social media accounts or our homepage, arirang.com. Take care and stay safe.